Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Murphy's Front Bar, episode number 2 after it went viral last week thanks to our special guest, Zach Tui. Plenty to talk about in the world of footy. It's been an unbelievable weekend of footy, not only game-wise, but obviously with the situation with Andrew Gaff over there in the West. I'll introduce the panel, our regular panel members. Bluey McGrath kicked 18 unbelievable goals in his career. He's coach of the Whammos, and he once stayed up all night waiting for his sexual relations to arrive. Bluey!
Thanks, man. Glad to be.
And the man next to him captained the Geelong Falcons. He returned as coach and he guided them to the premiership last year. This year he is guiding them to about 14th place on the table. Dan Doc O'Keefe. And our special guest from the Geelong Football Club, he was, he's South Australian. We won't hold that against him. He was drafted with the 17th pick in 2009. He's played 69 games and kicked 131 goals at an average of around about 2 a game. Ladies and gentlemen, can you welcome Dan Menzel? Menzel, we'll start with you, and it's been, well, it was an unbelievable round of football. Obviously, postscripted by the situation over there in the West Coast Eagles. Obviously, you're not going to comment on the individual case, but do you as a player look at something like that and think, goodness gracious me, particularly from a player like Andrew Gaff, who's been a ball player his entire career?
Yeah, it's one that you look at that and you think it does seem obviously out of his character, but I think most players you would say that's the case with as well. And it's obviously in the moment it happened, but it's not a good look for the game. And yeah, he's going to obviously be out for a long time. But yeah, it's certainly been the talk of the town, and a lot of blokes spoke about that at the club today.
And unbelievably, his brother actually is on the West Coast list. Brayshaw's brother plays for West Coast. So, and I believe you were saying as before we came on air that they actually played golf together during the week.
Yeah, which makes it even more bizarre, I guess. But I don't know if they'll be playing golf with each other anytime soon. But yeah, it's incredible, to be honest. And it would be an interesting dynamic with the brother there as well, how he actually handles that and how he actually feels about the situation.
Doc, you obviously the Falcons across the weekend, you had a good win over the Pioneers, but you're with the boys today. Was the kids talking about it as much as everybody, other fan is?
Not particularly, no. I guess it's something that, like Ben said, it sort of doesn't happen much anymore, really, does it? It might have been a bit different back in your day, but
It's always 1,000 years ago.
But it doesn't really. You don't see it clear cut like that much anymore. I was actually in Sydney when Barry Hall got stake up that day. I was part of the squad back then, and it was just a weird feeling across the club when Hawley actually left the club for quite a few weeks just to have some time away. It was just a bizarre feeling across the club. So you mentioned about how do you interact with a player to hit your brother. It's just it's a unique situation that I don't think many people can comment unless you live it.
Some have suggested that it'll be the end of. I mean, Andrew Gaff obviously had a contract with the West Coast Eagles, and the rumour is that he and the club are some way apart in terms of finding a deal. But it may be the end in terms of he may need a fresh start now out of Western Australia, given that he's obviously got a life to live. He'll go out. You only need a couple of dickheads who have got a few grogs in them out who take exception, and it may be that he's unfortunately for Andrew Gaff, who I know that he'd be feeling as bad as anyone right now, but it may be the end of his career at West Coast.
Look, it could be. I think he's going to get it, unfortunately, wherever he goes. You're going to get those idiots out that will say something smart and whatnot, but that's, I guess, just part of it. It's not something that you want for anyone else to have to go through, but it's, you don't, like Doc said, you don't see it very often nowadays.
Bluey, you're a bit old school. There's talk of...
You mentioned that last week.
You're from the school of hard knocks. There's talk also of police investigation and criminal charges. What are your thoughts on that in terms of, is it what stays on the footy field stays on the footy field?
Yeah, you would hope not. It's one out of the box, really, and no one likes to see that. No one wants to see that. I think we're a fair bit removed from that. You would have thought if it goes down that road, I'd be ditching the AFL for sure.
Dan, I was going to say, what about also talk from this? There's so many scenarios have come from this Andrew Gaff situation, but red card, would you be in favour of a red card in AFL footy?
No, I'm not. I know that some people are up for things like that, but I mean, I think our game is the greatest game in Australia for a reason. It's because of the rules that we've had for such a long time, and I hated the substitute rule, which I think a lot of players did, and a red card would just make it more like soccer as well. So I'm against making the game more like other sports, because I think that's what makes it such a good game, that it is different to your traditional sports around the world.
Can I just back? I was going to say back in your day again, but when you obviously played on some big key forwards in your time, mate, and renowned to be tough and quite physical. Where's the borderline? Like you played on Carey for all those years. Where's the borderline in terms of stirring them up and getting so physical compared to doing something that we've been replayed so many times on Fox Footy already?
Yeah, well, when you're playing the good players, like the champions, and you're not as good as them, you don't poke the bear.
Yeah.
And you got to be a little bit smart about it. Blokes like Carey, Barry Hall, played Lockett, and back in the day when you could get away with a little bit more, obviously, than you can now, you wouldn't even think about it. Getting it to a point where they were that wound up, they were going to give you one. If you were stupid, you would have, but it just, you know, even then it didn't happen often. There would be some, what you call melee, I suppose, and there'd be punches thrown, but that'd be about it. Yeah.
How many weeks back in when you played would that be, you reckon? Would Gaff get?
3.
How many you reckon this week?
Oh, I reckon he'll get 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think
I'll be staggered if he doesn't.
Do you think it was as bad as the Lee Matthews on Neville Bruns?
Different scenario where, whether you like it or not, I mean, he hit him front on, so he could actually see it coming. Whereas Brunsy didn't see it, Staker didn't see it. They had no idea that was coming.
Well, interestingly, Lee Matthews tonight was quoted as saying that he thought that the criminal investigation side of it should still be open, in terms of that should be an option that they potentially explore, but maybe not go through with it. But it's something that and obviously he was charged criminally for that king hit on Neville Bruns, who I believe has probably been contacted by every media outlet south of Jerusalem today. We mentioned your game on the weekend, Doc. Dan, we obviously saw your game, heartbreaking for the Cats. You had a good win, and in winning, you succeeded in your second record for the year. Can you enlighten us? You now hold 2 records as the Geelong Falcons coach.
Really glad you brought it up, because I reckon last week I copped it a bit, and already in the intro I copped it becoming 14th out of a 12-team competition.
Yeah.
So we played really well yesterday up in Bendigo. So Bendigo, I guess, are last on the ladder, and we're 10th. But in saying that, we kept them to 2 goals, 1 for the whole game, which meant that it was the lowest score against the Falcons in TAC Cup history. So, yeah, it's wonderful.
And I believe there's a humorous story for it's in revolving around Sam Walsh, and some footage that has been erased or never actually saw the light of day. Can you explain? Obviously, Sam Walsh looks like being drafted inside pick 3, you would have thought, potentially pick 1, and there was champion data don't actually do the stats live, they do them during the week, but that's obviously reliant on somebody filming the game.
So all our games get filmed in TAC Cup, and it's never happened to him before in TAC Cup the whole time, but we finally have a great win, probably the biggest margin we've had in my time as coach, and we do rely on professional people to film the game, and then champion data then actually assess and watch the game, the raw vision that night, and then collaborate with stats from that division. The second quarter was just completely disappeared. It wasn't filmed, and part of the first quarter we missed as well. So in 2.5 quarters, Sam's racked up 33 possessions, and I reckon he might have raised the bat at 50 if we had the full vision there.
So any idea what was the cameraman?
Well, one of my assistant coaches actually had the power lead at halfway through the second quarter, trying to plug it into the wall down the club room at some stage. I don't know what was going on, but
he missed it.
He
missed a 50. So that might be the difference between pick 2 and pick 1.
Oh, it could be.
Bluey, the Whamos, what did the Whamos do on the weekend?
Yeah, well, no good yesterday. We got beaten by St Mary's, who are a quality outfit. They're second on the ladder. We're third, mind you, out of 4. But yeah, they're a good team, and we won the toss, and we should have gone the Trent Cochin and kicked against the wind, but we went with it, and we only kicked 2 points in the first quarter, which was costly. But the girls tried. They played pretty well, but St Mary's had 4 VFL girls back in, so that helps.
And I believe there was a serious incident involving, was it one of your girls? Or
Yeah, one of our girls, yeah, she got a knock to the back of her neck, and she got a bit dizzy and came off, and sat her off for 20 minutes or so, and asked her whether she's right to go back on. She said, yeah, I'm right to go back on, and then 10 minutes later she brought herself off. She must have got knocked again, and slowly but surely she deteriorated as the game went on, and we had to call an ambulance for her. So she's had a concussion in the first game we played, but none since. But yeah, she's good now. She's home today, which is a great result.
Well, let's hope she's okay. And Menz, we all saw your game Friday night. The talk obviously was the Gary Ablett missed goal in the final minute and a half of the game. What was your sort of overriding emotion, and do players talk about the missed goal at the end? Because I've heard even Dermot Brereton suggested Gaz ran wide so he'd avoid contact, which I thought was one of the more extraordinary claims I've heard this year. But what was your overriding emotion to get so close yet end up not getting the chocolates?
Yeah, I think it's probably disappointment because you realise that you did come within a kick and so close to actually winning the game against the top team. And you feel like we did come home so strong that if we had been able to produce that for another quarter or closer to 4, then we definitely would have won the game. So I've heard a lot of people say there's so many positives to take out of it, and you're obviously so close, but at the same time, the competition's so even this year that the actual losing the game has put us outside the 8. So it's one that it's going to hurt us a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't in the end, but it's so close that it could be the difference between us missing the 4 or making it, and then obviously the 8 as well.
Well, the irony in that is that, you know, you'd be one of the teams that would be considering yourself a chance to beat Richmond, yet there is some chance, hopefully not, but you're actually not even part of the September action. That's how close the competition is.
Yeah, it is, and Hawthorn this week is going to be just as difficult for us. They play really well against us, and they play the G really well. So they're in 5th at the moment, so they'll certainly be looking at a top 4 spot. So we're going to have to make sure we're on this week, otherwise, yeah, we will definitely be outside looking in.
We've got to ask you, because you kicked 3 sausage rolls, and late in the game you just appeared to sort of twinge the groin, and how's it come up, and you reckon you'll be right to take on those Hawks that you talk of?
Yeah, it's come up really well. I did have a moment in the third quarter where I went to change direction, got body contact. It was just a really vulnerable position, I guess, and I just felt, I don't know, it was almost a little twinge, but it wasn't, and I just lost a bit of power for the rest of the game. So I had scans the next day just to make sure everything was all good, and just stirred up the pubic joint a little bit. So couple of days of anti-inflammatories, I actually feel really good, so I have no doubt I'll be fine to go this week.
You've had more problems than Lindsay Lohan across your career, haven't you? Have you become like Dr. Google? Do you know, can you diagnose yourself? Do you know what the issue is and how long you might be out? Does that run through your brain during the game? Do you think, well, it's maybe a week, or no, this will be good, I'll be good by Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately I know my body inside out, but even still in a game, it's the same as any player that's played the game, and these guys could answer this as well. You're out there and you still try and trick yourself and be like, no, I'm fine, I'm good to go. I remember coming off and physio going, are you alright? And I remember saying to him, no, it's nothing, don't worry about it, and just let me go. Run back out there, and a minute later I'm thinking, I probably should have let him have a look at me. But so it's one of those ones that you do know something's happened and you got a fair idea, but at the same time, in the heat of the battle, you try and trick yourself and think, no, I'll be able to run this out. So yeah, for me, hopefully it should be all fine this week. I feel good today.
You mentioned those problems jokingly, but it's been well documented. Do you feel like you're a mentally stronger person than you may have otherwise been in terms of your resilience for things that not only just injury, but things that may happen in a game, even life itself? Do you feel like it's made you a far mentally stronger person?
It has to, I think. You can't go through that and go through setback up to setback, whether it be in footy or whether it be in general life, and not learn from that and develop from that. And yeah, it's funny, like I speak with guys who are in rehab for a couple of weeks and they're like, geez, this sucks, how bad is this? And And I'm like, yeah, it's bad. I'm like, mate, a couple of weeks, like, I'll take that anytime. So you just understand, I guess, how bad things can be. And for me, every single game I go out there and look around the ground before the game and always think how lucky I am actually to be playing, because for 4 years straight I couldn't do that. So I think the answer is you have to develop through those sort of things you go through.
Is that one of the reasons why your warm-up for a Saturday game starts on a Friday, in terms of you're getting out there about 7 hours before they bounce the ball?
It's funny, people ask me, and I guess a lot of players probably get the question, do you prefer night games or day games? And I think a lot of players say day games, but I prefer night games. One reason is just because I like playing footy at night, but another one is it does take me a while to prepare and do everything and get warmed up, that it just gives me longer in the day to get ready. My first game back after this groin injury was 11 a.m. At GMHBA for the VFL, and I remember getting up about 7 thinking, I'm not sure I don't want to do this every week, but so it is. It's got to be meticulous, but that's just how it has to be for my career, and I'm well aware of that, and I'm happy with that to be able to play.
We'll set the alarm for Saturday. Boys, a great footy story. Alec Johnson playing his game after first game back, wearing the number 2 of Reece Shaw, which I believe he wore because Reece Shaw was pivotal in helping him return to footy. You probably, we wouldn't be able to fathom what he's been through. Dan's one who can, but it was great to see him out. He didn't play particularly well, but to have a win like that, and Buddy Franklin interviewed after the game and says, I couldn't be prouder to run out with this guy. It was a really good footy story. It doesn't matter who you support.
Absolutely. I think as much credit goes to Alex Johnson for hanging in for so long and doing that rehab work for that amount of time, but I think the Port also needs to go to the footy club and Sydney Footy Club, just like Geelong did with you, mate. But to hang on to a player and, like mentioned before, to hold on to a position on the list for, was it 2,100 and something games?
2,136 days.
Like, that's an extraordinary amount of time. And you mentioned he's pipped you in that too, hasn't he? So
he's happily have that.
Yeah. So I think it's a credit to the Sydney Football Club as well for having faith in him too.
It was great. His mum and dad were there and they were interviewed, and it was a real family affair. Dan, you obviously have had a little bit to do with him in terms of speaking personally with him along the journey. And what was your last contact with him? And did he contact you to say he was playing, or did you just find out through the media?
We've spoke for probably the last 3 or 4 years, and caught up a number of times and basically touched base on what both have been through and what's worked and obviously what hasn't, and just been a good sounding board for each other, I guess. And so for me, for a good year and a half now, I was waiting for last weekend. I was waiting for that moment because it takes you back to when you went through that, and I guess the sheer elation that's involved with it, but also you understand that journey that not many people can, and you just can't because you haven't been through it, and it's such a long time out. And so for the news to break last week, when I found out, I sent him a message straight away. I said instantly brought a smile on my face because you're just so happy. And I'm biased obviously, but it's the best news story of the year in footy by a mile for mine. And so I think you undersold him a little bit. I thought he played alright. He had about 20 touches, so I don't think he was too bad, to be honest. And that emotion probably helped them get over the line in the end, which was a massive win for him. So it's incredible. Now for him, it's to actually maintain that, and if Sydney are a part of finals, then to be a part of that team.
He'll get the 3 Brownlow votes probably, but it was interesting that I wonder whether Sydney, his form in the NEFL had been okay without being over the top. I wonder where they were at, his standing and his issue. They brought him in as just a fillip for the group, given that they needed a spark. They were on a downward spiral, and his story, as much as anything, got him back into the side. And obviously he'd done the work, but it certainly worked because it was a cracking effort by the Swans, who keep their finals chance alive, and probably did the Cats a little bit of a favour too. Yeah,
I think so. I think his best game in the NEFL was actually the week before, so he probably produced the one that they were looking for, I guess. And Sydney was battling, obviously, the previous probably 3 weeks they'd lost, so it did give them that little bit of motion that they might have needed. But also for us, Collingwood's obviously in the top 4, and the Swans are around us, so you want the teams that are, I guess, in the spot you want to be to lose, and that happened with the Pies and with the Power on the weekend. So hopefully it can work in our favour.
You're the squeaky clean sort of bloke, aren't you? Because I text some of your teammates today just to try to get something, anything. Got absolute donuts.
Good.
Got nothing. You must have something. Someone must have something.
I think it comes down to who we choose to come on the panel, Ben, because I did the same last week with Zach and couldn't find a thing.
We just
You
straight
must
down the
have
line.
something. You must have a secret that you can tell us. Surely
A
there's
secret that I can drop on.
Well, why not? This is the perfect forum.
Look, we'll move to the next segment. I'll have a think and we'll come back to it. Alright?
Just quickly, you talk about that Sydney game on the weekend. Has Tom McCartan gone past Paddy McCartan?
Well,
He's gone past him like he's bowling that fence.
well, I mean, he probably
has.
Yeah,
He's been fantastic.
He is playing some.
the
very
fact
good
that you're
footy.
actually contemplating that suggests, he's not great for Paddy. And obviously, Doc, you coached Tommy last year, and have you been surprised, given the position he's being asked to play, how well he's not starring, but how well he's adapted to AFL senior footy?
Not really. What we've seen last year, Tom's an amazing story. In fact, 18 months ago, we were contemplating whether we actually put Tom on the Falcons list. So we hadn't seen him because of injury. He hadn't played for a couple of years, and he wasn't as big as what he is now. So he just went through this rapid growth development from nowhere, to the point where we contemplated not putting him on the list. And all of a sudden he goes in the second round of the draft at the end of the year, and we knew because of the way he is and he's wired, he's so determined, so competitive, and he's tough and courageous that. And he's got a big tank, so he actually fits all the moulds of a modern day centre forward.
I wonder whether he could potentially be part of the making of Paddy, given that no doubt Paddy will be watching his development and be thrilled for him, but at the same time thinking maybe it's time I got to rig along too, and that may end up being his brother's development, may end up assisting Paddy.
Yeah, it could. I think obviously Paddy's diabetes and things like that, he's still trying to come to terms with that, from what I read and hear, and being involved in elite sport, trying to balance the both, and get fit. I mean, to this point, I don't know whether he's had a real crack at it to be able to get super fit. He still looks like he's a 16-year-old coming through the ranks. Not overweight, but he just doesn't look rock hard fit. Whereas the young fella, Tom, seems to have had no problems, rock hard fit, big tank, got a really good set of hands. And it seems like when you watch Sydney on the TV, that they genuinely like him. As soon as he does something good, they get to him and they're really behind him.
He's that character, mate. Like he's the most lovable kid last year that you come across, and I know for a fact that when he popped up at mid-20s, 26 I think he was in the draft, or close to, I know for a fact Kinnear Beatson at Sydney, their head recruiter, his eyes lit up and thought that was an absolute steal. He reckons he got the steal of the draft.
Well, I think he might have gone, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been pick 34 or pick 35, and Geelong was certainly going to pick him in pick 36 where they took Charlie Constable.
Correct.
So no doubt the Cats will be monitoring the progress of Tom McCartan, given that all his family live in Geelong. But it's great that the preparation that these kids do in the TAC Cup, if you're good enough, you can come in and have an impact in your first year. Talking about impact in your first year, Tim Kelly, talk of the Cats, 36 possessions in a red hot game on Friday night. Dan, you train and play with him, and you were saying before we came on that he's a pretty quiet sort of bloke. He's not overtly, he's not out there. Yep. But geez, his ability to play footy and to adapt from a waffle. I know he was a good player in the waffle, but it's a whole different kettle of fish coming to the AFL. He's been unbelievable.
He is. It's been an amazing story this year, and I think the thing that probably is more amazing to me is the fact that he's actually 4th or 5th in line in our midfield. When you take into account Dangerfield, Selwood, Gary Ablett, even Mitch Duncan, it means that he's actually not in the midfield all the time, and that's not his role. He's actually got to adapt. He's got to play as a high forward. He's got a lot of roles. He's got to play game day. And that can be really difficult at times because you feel like you're in between the play a lot. You feel like you're on the bench, starting on the bench. You're not getting a good crack at it. You're not on the ball for the majority of the game. And for him to actually adapt to that, to have that role on, and to have 36 touches when you're probably not our go-to in the middle, it's quite incredible. And he has been unbelievable this year.
Was he the wow factor from pre-season? Or is he so you knew from early on when you do the match simulation, training's obviously very different to how it was Bluey Black in your day. But it's
Did circle work?
We did match practice all the time.
Did you know straight off, or did the club have an idea that he was way above average and ready to play senior footy straight off?
Oh, I think they knew he was ready to play senior footy straight away, but we had an idea or an inkling, but I think the first time I sort of realised was when we played AFLX actually, and obviously a much smaller ground, but he played in that as well as a few of our other guys, and I just remember thinking how silky and classy he was, and he could just cover the ground so well. I thought, wow, straight away, as soon as I saw that, I was like, he's going to play round one, hands down, and then he's just developed and grown from there. So I think the club had an idea, but at the same time, I think they thought, we've got Gary back, we've got such a star-studded midfield, he's there as cover for us, and probably no one expected him to do what he's doing.
Boys, already this weekend was the weekend the AFL trialled the different rules in a VFL competition, with the 18 taking the goal square out another 18 metres, is it, and having zones, and the same weekend the game delivers 5 matches within a goal. It's the footy gods, I think, were just sort of playing their equivalent of a pick 4 in Uno, I reckon, when they produced that. But it's ironically the VFL trial, from all reports, the game didn't open up as they expected, and the coaches were actually, they were talking to the coaches while the game was on, and both coaches didn't really notice the difference. So it's interesting this weekend's been such a wonderful weekend for footy, and yet they're trialling measures to change the game.
There's certain rules that need tinkering with, for sure.
Throw it up.
Throw it up, stop bouncing it. It's not about the umpires. I would have thought when the two ruckmen, correct me if I'm wrong, go to the centre bounce after a goal or at the start of each quarter, that it's supposed to be 50-50. It's not supposed to favour one or the other. And continually, the more you watch footy, the more it favours one ruckman.
Nothing now, haven't you?
Well, am I wrong?
Yeah, no,
Just throw it up, because they're no good at it, they don't practice it.
Oh, I'm not against it. I'll be happy for him to throw it up, absolutely. But that's not one of the ones that I guess is front of mind for me, that I'm like, that has to change or it doesn't. But in terms of the actual rules that they've brought in, the 18-metre square is an interesting one. I understand they want to open the game up more.
I'll be able to kick it to 50 if that's what I play.
See, that's the thing. So the opposition will know that Bluey will be able to kick it to 50, and they'll all set up there. So I think that's why the game probably didn't look that different, because you've gone, all right, it's an 18-metre square. What are we going to do? We're not going to chip it short to the pocket, are we? We're going to now kick it down the middle, so everyone goes down the middle. So it'd be interesting to see different tactics with that. Yeah, I don't think it would change it that much, because obviously teams will know what will happen.
To be honest, like, I reckon I get frustrated. I don't know, we talk about it's the greatest game in the world, and I totally agree. But I don't know any other sport that changes their rules every single year.
Yep.
I don't understand that. And I know they might try to make the game better, but from my point of view, I think it's a coaching thing. Like, we play in TAC Cup with the decongestion rule. So we tailor different things as a coaching group to be able to, I guess, maximise our output or our performance based on those particular set of rules. It's the same in AFL. If there's zones or bigger squares, whatever it is, the coaches are going to come up with a way to beat it or better it.
Josh Jenkins, the score review. What about if the ball hits the post but still goes through for a goal? It's a goal. Just to take out.
Well, obviously, based on what happened on the weekend, they brought that in already. That must have been one they never mentioned, but it's in.
Are we happy with that?
I mean, again, I'm against changing it to make it like other games. I mean, rugby union, rugby league, that's what that would be.
NFL,
yep.
soccer.
I wouldn't be against it, but at the same time, I'm still happy with how it is. I still think that the review system is good, and if it's not clear enough or evident enough, then you go with the decision that's been made. But yeah, no, it's very interesting as to why these new rules might come in and changes. One of the things that's been talked about is the ratings have been down. And we actually spoke about this as a group, and it was interesting. We said, are ratings down because people actually aren't interested in the game as much anymore, or is it because there is so many devices and things to do nowadays? Everyone has an iPhone, everyone has so many other things. Guys, people watch the highlights on their iPad instead of watching full games because they've got other things to do. And so that's an interesting one that I'd be really interested to find out if that is why it is, or if it's people turning off because they don't like the game.
You're obviously multitasking, though. You're watching and I'd imagine hammering some sort of device, I would have thought.
Yeah, I've got my laptop there with my business stuff that I'm doing on that, Benny, at the same time.
You want to give it a plug, your apparel line?
Yeah, so it's MTMF, Mental Toughness, Mental Fortitude. So it's my sports consulting website. So it's a good 50% of it is the actual recovery information. And for anyone who's done an ACL, I've got an ACL plan on there, which is a 9-month plan. That basically the reason why I did it is because I've been through 4, obviously, and a lot of other people have been through ACLs as well. And I guess for me, I've got a physio, a welfare manager, a strength coach, so many different things that I have at my disposal, and I still understand how difficult it is to do the rehab. And for your country netballer or footballer, they might see a physio once every 2 weeks, and for the other 2 weeks, they've actually got no idea what they're doing. So there's not a lot of documentation out there as to say how to do the rehab. So I basically write a rehab as well as mentally what you're going to go through and physically and how to overcome those hurdles.
And is it, obviously you've had a great response. It's been going for what?
A couple of years, yeah, 2 years now. So I've got that on there as well as a lot of other recovery information that's not just ACL based. It's any sort of setback or injury, because I think the principles are similar. But in 2 years we've had 3,000 people registered for the ACL plan, which is something I'm really proud of. And then obviously the apparel that comes with it too.
So from show 3, the front bar will be dressed by your apparel.
MTMF, absolutely.
We heard
Get around us, we'll wear it.
You'll wear anything that's free.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, that top you got on. The Doc, we heard last week that coaching, you're looking to sort of continue to develop your coaching. Bluey, you want to become obviously builder to the stars. Mans, what's post footy? What's post footy look like? You're 27 next month, and you obviously, hopefully, still got some time left in the game. I'll ask you about that shortly, because that's why I've got you paid the big bucks to get on. But what are your plans? You're savvy with the media. You've got an easy disposition. You love the game. Is the media something you'd like to do? Is coaching something you'd like to do? You've obviously had little taste coaching the under-14s up there at Newtown a few years ago, but because obviously you've got to think beyond just your footy career.
Yeah, you do, and now more than ever we're told as AFL players to actually have other things outside of footy so that you can make that transition. And I'm glad now that I've now played more AFL games than I have commentated on K-Rock with you. Which it took me a while to get there.
That's part of the reason you wanted to get back so quick.
Yeah, it's nice to talk into you downstairs with the headphones on than it is actually up in the box. But I did enjoy that. I do enjoy the media stuff. I equally, if not more, enjoy the coaching that I've done. And that's been the under-14s at Newtown, but also Interleague and the women's Geelong women's team the last couple of years. I've helped out Hoodie, the coach there. So I'm not really sure where I want to take those, and obviously the business as well. I'm sort of like, if I can keep growing all of that, then hopefully something will be there for me when I do finish up.
And I'll ask you one. You're obviously, your commitment to footy and your rehab, you don't get to your position after what you've been through without an enormous amount of hard work and commitment and drive. Your brother Troy was drafted with a first-round pick to Carlton. Went to Adelaide as a really young player. Now I think he's playing in the Sandful, is he?
He's playing in the level below. Yeah.
So I've had a couple of conversations with you. He just didn't quite have the drive. He certainly had the talent.
Yeah.
It's funny that you obviously came from the same stock, and that's fine. He's chosen his path, but it's a very different one to the sort of mental toughness that you've shown.
Yeah, it is. It's I think AFL, as an AFL footballer, it's such a good job, and it's unbelievable to play AFL, but it's not all good, and the high pressure situation environment isn't for everyone. You do have to make sacrifices, and you do have to be smart, and it's as simple as you play on the weekend. You can't just go out and have 10 beers with your mates and do whatever you want. You've got to think about all these things, and
put him on.
10. I'm playing too late, obviously. But it's amazing nowadays, and it's funny Bluey says that, because you speak about Corey Enright's my forwards coach, and you speak to guys like that about literally 10 years ago how different it was. And with social media nowadays and Fox Footy, there's footy on every single night. it's basically you can't do anything and get away with anything that's not professional. So it's one of those ones that for Troy, he did enjoy it, but I guess if you're playing in the twos every week at an AFL club, then that is actually really difficult because you literally have everyone who knows you go, when are you going to be playing in the AFL again? Why aren't you in there? All these questions. It's already hard enough for you to deal with that. Okay, I'm just on the out, I'm trying to get back in. But there's so many external pressures as well that make it difficult. And by no means am I saying that the AFL isn't one of the best jobs in the world and you shouldn't strive to get there, because it is. But I think it's the things that you don't see that actually can make it a drain at times.
Has it been a relief for him that he's not in that system? That he's able just to enjoy his mates and play some footy on the weekends and sort of live a normal life, so to speak?
It's actually probably the best word to describe it. He's happier now than he was last year. And again, you got to work hard to get a game in an AFL team, and so he wasn't playing much of last year, and that is difficult. And for him now to be playing with his best mates locally, he's working a job that he's enjoying as well. It's a bit of a relief, and it just takes that pressure off. And I guess your passion for footy goes up and down throughout your career, and hopefully for him, he'll really enjoy it this year, where he'll start to come back next year and he can go from there. So, yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, well said. Doc, you deal with kids and their emotions in footy, and we spoke about it last week, kids at different levels, and some kids, and obviously to a different degree, you're sort of managing kids and their expectations of where their footy might or may not get to.
Totally, and I think with us too, there's all these different types of representative football throughout TAC Cup these days, whether it be you're playing the big country, or you're playing the under-17s futures, or you're playing the under-19s futures. There's all these different extra squads you can get chosen for, even though when you're already a Geelong Falcon. And so forever I'm battling those conversations with kids that get picked in them, don't get picked in them. It's probably the harder ones to have. The parents as well can chime in about that as well. Why wasn't my young fella in this? And so it's a really interesting balance to make, and it all happens within a 6-month bubble. So it's pretty full on.
Bluey, you didn't have growing up there in Dandenong, you were just too busy rolling bars out of the 7-Eleven to worry.
Well, we went through that last week. Year 9 at Dandy Tech, we did you learn how to fix cars and did woodwork, which that's my trade now, but we also learned to steal cars. That was part of the curriculum. That was okay. No problem. School hard knocks, nothing wrong with that.
You had a coroner at your school, apparently, not a principal. Menz, we've got to ask you, you're free agent last year and you ended up back at the Cats. What's 2019 look like? Can you give us a bit of a scoop here? In talk with the Cats, what's the story for you next year?
Here's the secrets coming out.
Yeah, I'll drop a couple here. Now, my manager's in talks at the moment, but it's just talks. And the club, obviously, last year I got the 1-year deal, and they're pretty strong on that, which, I mean, I've had 4 knee recos, so I can sort of understand part of that, and it's valid. But at the same time, we're probably pretty strong that 2 years is what we would like, and it's been 4 years now since I've done an ACL. So the body of work in terms of my knees, I think, is pretty strong. And so it's one that, look, it's another thing with 1-year deal, to be honest, is now that I look up at Fox Footy on the TV, is you get to this stage of the season every single year, and you have blokes like yourself who go, what's the go next year? Where are you playing footy next year?
That's like him, yeah.
Do I want this for 6 years, the next 6 years, hopefully that's how long my career lasts at AFL level, to have to deal with this every single year? And look, it's not ideal, but if that's what it is, then it is. But that's part of what will come with it.
Did you miss this extended period this year, which was obviously really disappointing? I understand there was a period there where you were unable to do anything.
Yeah.
You couldn't literally walk.
Yeah.
Did you think at some point during that 4 weeks that could you see your career flashing before your eyes, or were you always confident that you would get back? Because you were out for 12 weeks, so to spend a month of it not being able to walk.
Yeah.
Did you Is there any concerns?
Well, no, because I've been through full knee reconstruction. So as much as being on crutches and being in a bit of pain with a groin injury is bad, it's nothing in perspective. So it was one that I was like, it's obviously not ideal. I'm really frustrated, and I had my first full pre-season in 8 years, and had a pretty good start to the season, and that's where the frustration lied, I guess, that I finally felt like I was going to put together a whole season and be able to show everyone what I actually could do and what I haven't been able to do for a good 7 years. And but I think the good thing is the club and the footy world knows that this wasn't a result of my body letting me down. It was a result of a really bad reaction to a couple of injections that didn't go well. So in terms of my body and being able to hold up to the rigours of AFL, I'm really confident that with a pre-season next year, hopefully that can be my year.
Good to hear, and obviously the Cats have got 3 really, really important games in the context of the season. The momentum after the Zach Tui goal was followed on with the win over Brisbane, and last week we came within a 15th of beating the clear-cut premiership favourite. So it's so up for grabs, this premiership, and you can win it from anywhere. That you've just got to find a way to get over the Hawks, because it's always that concern after a really big game that there is some sort of little letdown, and Hawthorn are just the sort of side that can take advantage of that.
Yeah, and we've had some really close battles with the Hawks in the past, even when they haven't been at their best. And you're right, you look at the premiers the last 2 years, Richmond and the Bulldogs were not the best teams for the duration of that season. They're the 2 teams that got hot and played the best footy come September. So we're well aware that firstly we've got to make it, but if we can, then any team can win it in the 8, and why can't it be us? So this week we absolutely have to be on and have to be up for it, because if not, Hawthorn will beat us and they'll move into the top 4, and it'll make our chances of the top 8 quite difficult.
Have we got any questions from anybody for Dan or the panel?
Dan, to go through the interest and recovery which you've gone through, we know that people can come back from really serious injuries, brain damage and things like that. And we know that vision and strong intent are essential parts of proceedings. How would you describe your vision?
I guess for me, my mum's probably one of the people that I really look up to, because I think that she's really strong and independent, and I think she's instilled values in me that sort of come out. And I guess for me, I always just wanted to get back to play, but at the same time, I missed out on a premiership in 2011 by 3 weeks with my first ACL, and that was a massive driving factor. And I always thought that this isn't going to stop me, because if I do give up or I don't quite make it back, I'll always wonder, maybe one day that could have been me, or I'll watch the boys play and potentially be in a grand final one year and think, if I try a little bit harder, if I stuck at it, maybe I could have been there that day. So that was something that didn't sit well with me if I was to think about giving it away. So I guess, when I reflect back on what means most to me, and at the time, then that's something that certainly stood out to me. And I thought, you know what, no matter how hard this is and how bad some of the days are, the good will outweigh the bad, and that's sort of try and pass on.
So you've never lost sight of that, have you?
No, I've never lost sight of that. I think I believe that if you put in the hard work, then it might take a long time sometimes, but eventually it will pay off. And sure, your goals might shift a little bit, and they certainly have for me along the way. But at the end of the day, the end goal is still the same one for me. So I think it's important that you do have people around you that you can talk to about that and work through, because you can be quite stubborn, and if you have it all yourself, it makes it really difficult, and other people can make things much clearer and easier and make it seem worthwhile as well while you're doing it.
Any other questions from anyone? Well, that might be a wrap, boys, for our...
You've
got one?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, but it's going to sound real dumb too, I reckon, because I reckon most people will probably know But so we know your nickname's Bluey, right? There's an obvious answer to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why did you get Bluey? Why isn't it different?
That's a $64 million question. I can't answer that.
So you don't know?
No.
Well, it wasn't a dumb question.
Might have something to do with his Caribbean gold on his head.
No, I understand that.
It originates from somewhere.
Why don't we call him Ready? If that's the case.
Because the blue
It just doesn't sound good.
Hey?
Bluey's always been blue. Red Head's always been called blue.
Yeah, but why?
Why?
Because it's an acronym. It's something. It's opposite.
We'll get him on the panel. He's here next week.
We've got a new host for Murphy's Front Bar. So you're suggesting it's the complete opposite. So that's why it's called. Right. There you go. So Bluey's just.
Blokes like me, big boys, get called slim.
Yes.
Tall blokes get called tiny.
What are you doing next Monday? So,
You're right.
Bluey's just found out why he's nicknamed Bluey. How old are you, Bluey?
Sorry?
How old are you?
48?
48.
Oh, yeah, right.
And you've just and you've just found out why your nickname is Bluey.
Hey, Ben,
That is quite
when I was
extraordinary.
a kid, you didn't pick on anyone with the red hair because you get in trouble, I suppose.
That hasn't changed either,
There's been a long
So you
list.
started blue.
I'll Andrew Gaff you later.
7 weeks. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your attendance. Next week, I'm not sure who we're going to have on the panel, but he's someone as equally interesting as Dan Menzel. So thanks, Dan, Doc, and Bluey up the end.